Okay. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Cordell McGarry. I work for the City of Chicago Department of Procurement Services in the Certification and Compliance Division. And today we're going to talk a little bit about a couple of our certification programs, the Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Program, or DBE, and its accompanying sister program, Airport Concessions Disadvantaged Business Enterprise. So we want to accomplish in our discussion today the discussion to cover the program requirements for DBE and ACDBE certification, talk a little bit about the certification process, and also touch on the application. And of course, the benefits of being certified as an ACDBE or DBE with the City of Chicago and opportunities once you're certified. So to begin, the Department of Procurement Services, we're the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services in the for the City of Chicago. We expend several $1 billion a year in goods and services for our departments and other agencies. And as a group, we pledge to work together as a team and with our customers to guarantee an open, fair, and timely process. We do that by establishing, communicating, and enforcing superior business practices. We believe that integrity, public trust, and the law are our guiding principles. With regards to the certification programs we call ACDBE and DBE, the City of Chicago is a federal grant recipient. We're subject to the U.S. Department of Transportation and Federal Aviation Administration's DBE requirements. Those are the agencies that are involved in the regulation of the program. And the regulations are known as 49 CFR Parts 26 and 23. The objectives of the DBE ACDBE program are to ensure non-discrimination in the award and administration of contracts sponsored by DOT FAA, which involves the Highway Transit Airport Financial Assistance Programs as well as the Airport Concessionaire Programs. Our intent is to create a level playing field on which eligible small businesses can compete fairly for these assisted contract opportunities. The DBE program provides guidance for the participation of firms that are certified as a DBE or ACDBE in pursuing those federally funded contract opportunities. So, talking a little bit about the program, once you're certified as a DBE or ACDBE, you're pretty much eligible to participate in contract opportunities involving federal dollars in the areas of highway transit, airport financial assistance. Your certification period is indefinite. You're certified. Once you're certified until cause such for you not to be certified any longer. We'll talk a little bit about the requirements as we go along. Under the regulations, a for-profit small business, which is at least 51% owned by one or more socially and economically disadvantaged people, and whose management and operations are controlled by one or more of the socially and economically disadvantaged owners, would be eligible for certification. Businesses are certified based upon an area of specialization. So basically in that area of specialization, be it plumbing, be it electrical work, be it professional services such as accounting, has to be owned and controlled by the socially and economically disadvantaged individuals. In other words, they would need to have the expertise to understand and control that activity. With regard to airport concessions, in addition to the concessions that we know, which would be a lot of times the restaurant or store or newsstand, airport concessions as a definition can also include businesses that provide management consultation, goods, supplies, and advertising services to those concessions that are operating at the airport. So you could be a concessionaire at the airport by physically operating a concessionaire, or as well as maybe a professional services firm that provides consultation to a concession at the airport, or someone that provides services or supplies to a restaurant at the airport, for example. With regard to groups that are defined as eligible for certification or as socially or economically disadvantaged, these groups would include Black Americans, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Subcontinent Asian Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, and women. Now, in addition to those I just described, other individuals that may not fit into these categories who can demonstrate that they've been victims of discrimination on an individual basis are eligible to make a case to prove that they're socially and economically disadvantaged. In addition to qualifying as a member of a socially or economically disadvantaged group, your business has to also meet certain size standards. Those size standards define you as being a small business eligible for participation. For the DBE program, the firm's gross sales on average of 3 years must not exceed what's called the Small Business Administration size limit for the firm's primary line of business, up to a maximum of $23.98 million. So basically what we're saying here is that the Small Business Administration is classified businesses by industry. And within that subsegment of industry, there's a determination of gross sales averaged over 3 years that will constitute whether or not a business is small or larger than that. For example, let's say for the plumbing industry, the contracting industry in the plumbing area, the average gross sales in order to qualify for a small business may be somewhere in the neighborhood of $15 million averaged over 3 years. So if your gross sales averaged over 3 years exceeds $15 million, then you wouldn't be considered to be a small business. But if it's within that range, then you would be considered small and eligible for a certification. That number varies depending on the type of industry that you're involved in. But in some industries, for example, that may have a much larger threshold gross sales, the DBE program has a cap at $23.98 million. So if you're involved, let's say, in a heavy-duty construction industry like streetscaping that may have average gross sales of $30 million over a year, under the SBA programs, just your gross sales shouldn't exceed $23.98 million for eligibility purposes. Under the ACDBE program, that number is a little different. It's a lot larger, and it's generally fixed. The 3-year average gross sales receipt must not exceed $56.42 million for most firms. So for purposes of ACDBE certification, a small business that's operating as a concession or providing services to a concession can be eligible as long as their gross sales averaged over 3 years does not exceed $56.42 million. There are certain exceptions, for example, like if you have a car rental operation, that number would be $75.23 million. If you're a bank or financial institution that's providing services at the airport, you're considered a small institution if your assets are less than $1 billion. If you operate payphones, which I think there's still some out there, if you have less than 1,500 employees, you're considered a small business. And of course, if you're an automobile dealer, if you have less than 350 employees, you will be considered eligible for certification. Okay. So in addition to the business size standard, we also have what's called a personal net worth standard. The business size standard and the personal net worth standards are part of the calculation or determination of economic disadvantage that I referred to earlier. In the case of an individual that's qualifying for certification, that individual should not have a personal net worth over $1.32 million. And of course, that number would exclude certain assets that you would have, such as your personal residence or your ownership interest in your business. If after the exclusion of those items, your personal net worth is over $1.32 million, then you're not considered to be economically disadvantaged. And I guess that's a problem that I think I would like to have. How about you? The certification process involves an application, an evaluation, and a site visit, and leading to a final determination. So to begin the process, interested businesses are encouraged to submit a DBE application. This can be done online at our website, www.chicago.mwdbe.com. All applications are done electronically. We no longer accept paper applications. In completing the application process, which you'll do online, you'll be prompted to attach copies of documents that are be submitted with your application. These documents can be tax returns, for example, information regarding your business. All this documentation can be attached to the online application process and actually submitted as part of your application. The process after submission of application and review will also involve an on-site interview by a member of our staff. We'll come out and interview the owners of the business and talk a little bit about what it is you do and how you do it. So, getting started. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of paperwork that we require. And just to give you a touch on some of the things that you'll need, to talk a little bit about that. To begin, you would need to provide evidence of citizenship or legal residency. For businesses, all businesses involve ownership, and those owners that have an investment of some sort in that business, and we like to know what that is. We call that the proof of contribution, or what it took for you to capitalize your business. In some cases, it could be relatively small, which might be your organization fees. In some cases, it may be a little larger, which may involve the cost for equipment that you need to invest in getting your business started. But that information, we would need evidence that you have done that. Depending on the type of business organization that you set up, there will be certain documents that will be needed. For example, the most common forms of business organization would be the sole proprietorship, partnership, limited liability company, and corporation. In the event of a sole proprietor that's doing business in a name other than their own, such as Cordell McGarry doing business as McGarry Plumbing, I would need to have an assumed name certificate that basically is a way of announcing that this is how I intend to do business. If it's a partnership, which involves two people generally going together in the business, there should be some sort of an agreement between the two of you. And we would need copies of that partnership agreement. And if you're doing business under an assumed name, we would also need a copy of that as well. A popular form of business now is called the limited liability corporation or limited liability company. It's kind of a cross between a corporation, a partnership, and perhaps a sole proprietor in the sense that it helps with regard to tax liabilities. That form of organization requires operating agreement, and again, if you're doing business under a different name, assumed name certificate, which is generally incorporated in the operating agreement. Finally, if you're organized as a corporation, we generally will ask that you provide us with copies of your articles of incorporation, which you filed with the Secretary of State, as well as copies of the bylaws, which constitute the governing rules of your organization. For individuals that are involved in the business, the owners primarily and key officers, we generally will ask for copies of W-2 or 1099 forms. We generally will try to ask for 3 years of information in that regard. That's to determine the compensation of the owners and key personnel. For the owners, we'll ask for 3 years of signed U.S. federal corporate income statements, as well as individual income tax statements. We'll also ask for 3 years of financial statements on the company, which would include the balance sheet, assets and liabilities, and income and expense statements. Now, while we generally will ask for 3 years of statements, we also note that in many cases, some businesses haven't been around for 3 years. There is no restriction as to how long you need to be in business in order to apply for certification. In the event that, for example, you're a startup and the information is not available, you can still apply for certification. Just indicate in the application that this information is not available due to that particular fact. In other words, we encourage you to tell the story. Okay. So, after we've done that, we will then, after we've got your information, we've gone through the review process, we'll schedule an on-site review or interview with the owners. And typically that will involve meeting with the primary owners of the company at the site itself. In the event that you have an off-site facility where you may store equipment, or such as trucks or things like that, we'll come out to that, we'll come out and take a visit there as well. The federal regulations require the performance of the on-site visits to the offices of the firm, and that site visit report of the applicant by any other U.S. DOT fund recipient can be used in this place. And what we're saying here is that in some cases we have firms from another state that have already been certified in their state. They come to our state seeking certification. We may choose to use the site visit report that was done by that particular state in lieu of doing a site visit of our own. But at any rate, we are doing a site visit, and depending on the circumstances, we may come unannounced, just to say hello. But it's an interview process. It generally takes about, on average, 40 to 45 minutes. We will talk to you about your business, how you came into ownership of the business, what your responsibilities and skills are in managing the business, information like that. So we basically will just take a tour of what you're doing, of the facilities. Okay. So after we've done the on-site interview and did the review of information, we typically will follow the particular process steps to arrive at a recommendation of either approval or denial. And for our purposes, let's say we're going to talk about approval. We will look at the ownership composition of the company. whether or not it meets the standards of being economically and socially disadvantaged, the business size of the business, the personal net worth of the owners. The areas of independence and control basically will refer to, again, the ownership, its ability to operate and control the business without interference or influence from any outside individuals that may not be eligible for us for certification. And just basically whether or not you have the expertise to run the business. I can't stress that more. Many times we get individuals that will apply for business. They may have been the person involved in putting up the money to start the business, but they are delegating the responsibilities for managing the business to someone else. That type of business would not be eligible for certification. The owners, we expect the owners to be involved in the business, to have the knowledge and expertise to be able to make the decisions necessary to run the business. It doesn't matter whether or not you're profitable. That's a business decision. We hope that you will be, but you have to have the skills and expertise to manage and operate the business and make the decisions. At the end of all of this, the burden of proof is going to be on the applicant. So again, that's to underscore that it's important that you tell the story about yourself, your business, what it is you do, because you know at best what you do. We're going to make a decision whether or not you're capable of doing work in a particular area of expertise. It's up to you to kind of convince us that you can. And so telling the story of what you do and how you do it, and if it's something that you love, it should come naturally, right? So we want you to do that and tell us that story. That's so important. Once we've gone through the process, we talk about the benefits of being certified with the City of Chicago, or as an ACDBE or DBE. Well, again, there's no fee involved with applying for certification. It's a process that is free. It's covered generally under the grant we receive from the federal government. The certification as a DBE or ACDBE provides opportunities for participation in federal contracts involving Department of Transportation and federal aviation funds with the City of Chicago, Illinois Department of Transportation, Chicago Transit Authority, Metra, and PACE. Those 5 organizations constitute what's known as the Unified Certification Program for the state of Illinois. Under federal regulations, if you're certified as a DBE or ACDBE with any of those agencies, you can participate in contract opportunities with the other agencies without having to go through and get certified individually at all 5 agencies. So this makes it a kind of a one-stop certification process where you're eligible to participate in opportunities with more than one agency. We have a relationship with a number of assist agencies, community organizations that can provide assistance to DBE firms. We refer to them as assist agencies, and they provide a variety of services to small businesses. We do have a list of those agencies on our website, so we encourage you to come to take a look at them. Typical assist agency could be a local chamber of commerce, for example, a trade association like maybe the Black Contractors United or the Hispanic American Industrial Group. And these groups are available to provide assistance and helping you not just in doing a DBE or a certification application, but just general services in business as well. Through all of this, in our ACDBE program, we look at this as demonstrating our continued commitment to the success of minority and women-owned businesses, and trying to see contract opportunities and trying to create stability and job opportunities for our citizens as a whole. The process of certification generally takes on average 90 days from the receipt of a complete application with all supporting information to its conclusion. And that's an average amount of time. In the event that we, during the course of the review of the application, find it necessary to reach out to you to ask for additional information or to seek clarification on something that you may have told in your application, that could have an impact on the time, but if it's complete and everything there, on average, it shouldn't take any more than 90 days to do that. Okay. I mentioned the one-stop certification. Again, once you're certified with the City of Chicago as a DBE, your certification as a DBE or ACDBE is accepted by the Illinois Department of Transportation, known as IDOT, Metra, PACE, and the Chicago Transit Authority as well. Through our subscriptions on our website, you can sign up for what's known as the DPS Alerts as well as the DOA alerts, which stands for the Department of Aviation. And this process will also provide you a lot of information concerning not just certification, but contract opportunities, and a wealth of information that can help you through the process of doing business with the City of Chicago. And again, we have information available. Contact our office if you choose to seek additional information. All of our City of Chicago and its sister agencies, the sister agencies and the like, contracting opportunities can be found online as well through our DPS Alerts. And also through our DPS Alert system, we can provide you with a list of agencies that provide that assistance. Again, these assist agencies are available to help you, assist you in business development. Okay, that concludes this portion of the discussion. If there are any questions, I'll be more than happy to entertain them now. Thank you.
Does anyone have questions? Yeah.
You mentioned regarding the financial 3-year financials to be submitted, and you also mentioned that not necessarily you need for a startup business to be 3 years. So then would W-9 or W-2 will be looked into it, or 1099 of the individual? How does that review process go with that financial?
Okay, so if I understand your question, the question pertained to financial statements of the business for a business that's not been in existence for 3 years or more. Well, we generally will ask that you provide what you can. So, for example, if you haven't, if you opened up your business, let's say 3 months ago, and you haven't filed taxes at that particular point in time, just let us know that of course, based on those circumstances, that information is not available. You can, though, provide us with financial statements of the business, and that could be as simple as an opening balance sheet, for example, which may record, what it took your investment in the business. You may not have generated any sales or anything like that, but you've at least, structured your business by making your contributions. So again, earlier, one of the things we asked for was a proof of contribution. So let's say I started my business today, and part of that process involved me registering my business with the Secretary of State as a corporation. So I filed application fee, processing fees. I may have bought a laptop. Okay, all those are expenses necessary to start my business. So those expenses, once I record them, make up the initial financial statement. And that's what I have. So I can list that as assets would be a liability, would be a laptop, and organization fees. That's all really I have. I have no liabilities yet, unless I had to borrow the money to do that. But that information would constitute a financial statement. That would do it there. 1099s and W-2 forms represent income compensation that you paid yourself or you've paid key people in your organization. If you haven't done that yet, again, you'd want to tell the story. My business was started 3 months ago. We have yet to generate a sufficient level of income to pay salaries, so it's not available at this time. Again, that would help us to put it in perspective as to where you are.
I see. Mm-hmm. The other question I have, can the home office be considered as a visit to the site?
If you operate from a home office, yes, it can be. It can be considered for purposes of doing a site visit. Yes, we do it all the time. Now, if you happen to have, let's say, a trucking business, let's say you're a one-man trucking operation, your office is at your home, but your truck is kept at a separate location, we could meet you at your home and go to your site, or probably go to the site where your truck is and do the interview there as well. But yes, we will come to your home.
Or is it necessary to have an office, or can the individual rent a space in an existing office run by someone else? In order to keep the overhead low, can he sublease it from the other entity?
So if I understand your question, you're referring to a circumstance where, let's say you're renting space from someone who may have an office.
Correct.
Currently. I presume that office is that office, the person who holds that office is leasing the space to you, and that the area that's being leased to you is controlled by you, is walled off, and it doesn't involve anything to do with the office, the person in the office, right?
Right.
So in that case, you would provide information concerning the lease arrangement that you have, which would be a lease agreement of some sort that pretty much identifies this space as being set aside for purposes of you running your business. And you control that space and have access to it. That's basically what we're looking for.
Okay. I see.
Okay.
Any other questions? No?
Okay.
All right.
Again, we thank you for coming in. Feel free to contact us if you have any questions. Our direct number is 312-744-4900. There's a staff of individuals that are willing to help answer any question you have about certification. Okay, thank you.